Okay, so anyway, thank you so much. Sorry about the technical troubles there, and I'll try to go through this, and I'll try not to speak too quickly. I can kind of hear the echo, and so, yeah, as it was pointed out to me, you end up sounding like Charlie Brown's teacher if you talk too fast in this echo. Wah, 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 wah. Oh, let's see here. So I'm from the Office of Student Conduct. The Office of Student Conduct, I just kind of want to give you kind of our philosophy and how we function. So people tend to think of us kind of as like, you know, the vice principal in high school or something, but it's a little different. Our focus really is to be educational and not punitive, although it might not always feel like that to folks. Keep hitting the wrong button. We're an administrative process. We're not civil or criminal. We think deeply about our sanctioning. So I don't just make things up for the fun of making things up. I really spend a lot of time thinking about what kinds of activities I can give to students that will actually help them learn from their mistakes and kind of move forward from that. When we get to the academic integrity part, especially for you folks who are going to be having instructional duties, it's really important because one of the things that we do is with academic integrity violations, we give students tools that will help teach them how to cite correctly and how to avoid plagiarizing, things like that. And so we think of our sanctioning as progressive. It's also progressive in a matter that if you continue to violate the standard of conduct, then the sanctions get more severe and they kind of go from being educational to where they feel a bit more punitive. We also take a public health stance in the work that we do. So we're actually very concerned about how we can affect the general population's health and well-being. For instance, I deal a lot. Who wants to take a guess at what I deal with the most? Come on, just one person. Actually, no, that's not it. Think undergraduate freshman year. Drinking, yes, drinking and alcohol, marijuana, those kinds of things. So it is actually, it's very much tied to public health, teaching students how to well, actually we encourage them not to drink until they're 21, but being part of that, like, hey, it's not okay just to go out and, you know, get yourself completely obliterated. It's not healthy, it's not safe, all of those things. And then actually this is foremost, and that's community and individual safety. So we have a code of conduct for reasons. We want to protect individuals in the community. As I said, that's our first and foremost goal. We also want to establish and maintain the expectations and responsibilities students must meet to remain members of the WSU community. And how I like to think of it is it's a privilege to go to college. It really is. It's expensive. Not everybody gets the opportunity. And we are going to hold you to higher expectations. The standard of conduct for students is actually, there are things that are prescribed by the standard of conduct that are perfectly legal. One of those, by the way, you cannot smoke marijuana on campus. Doesn't matter, it's federally funded property. Although it is legal in Washington state, you go off campus, you're over 21, you can use recreational marijuana, you cannot use it on campus. We also want to ensure, and that's actually that second part, to ensure compliance with federal and state laws and mandates, and to uphold our mission and values. So these are the things that can result in violations. So alcohol, drugs, drug paraphernalia, that's the thing that I deal with the most in our office. Who wants to take a guess at what number 2 is? And it's not sexual assault, sorry. It's, yes. Yes. Very good. Yes, it's academic integrity. All of the other things on there, you're graduate students. You're adults. You've kind of gone through that big learning curve that you get out of high school. And so I kind of expect you to know the rest of the things on here are not allowed, basically. They're against the standard of conduct for students. Just a couple of explanations. Group misconduct on there. We will hold groups responsible, and I know that people immediately go straight to the Greek system. Actually, we've held academic groups responsible. We've actually had hazing happen within an academic club. So groups can be held responsible for their behavior as groups. Okay, any questions about any of those on there? I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory, right? Okay. So it applies to any student who has any significant ties to WSU. So sometimes students will take a break for a semester, but they'll hang out in Pullman, continue to get in trouble on campus, and we will hold them responsible as students. And then if you want to see the whole standard, fascinating reading, especially if you're into reading administrative code or legal stuff. But the whole standard of conduct for students is there in the Washington Administrative Codes. So really quickly, there's a couple things that can happen once a violation is reported. Students will receive, they can receive a couple of things. They can receive an agreement letter, which they can contest, and that actually just comes in and says, hey, this happens most of the time with first-time drug and alcohol violations. Hey, the report said you did it. I'm going to assume you did it. Here's the sanction I'm assigning you, which is always an educational sanction. And you can do that, or you can come in and tell me that you didn't do it. 90% of folks just go ahead and do it because they're pretty much, you know, it's the police report, they did a breathalyzer, that sort of thing. The next thing that can happen is we can send out, or another thing, is we can send out a notice to appear, and that's for more severe violations or second drug or alcohol violations, in which they need to come in and talk to me. And then I sit down and talk to them about what happened, or one of my colleagues does, and then we talk about sanctioning if that's appropriate. They can receive you can receive a notice of investigation, which means I want to call you in and I'm going to talk to you about what happened. Or you can receive a notice of a conduct board hearing. So there is no one person in the Office of Student Conduct who can suspend or expel a student. That actually only is the purview of the conduct board. So if somebody goes to the conduct board, that means that that suspension or expulsion is on the table. And that's for egregious violations, anything that would hurt or harm another person, or for multiple violations. Drug and alcohol, we tend to, about the third violation, send them to the conduct board. For academic integrity, the second violation will send them to the conduct board. So our sanctioning, as I said earlier, is designed to be educational. Here's the kinds of things that we do. And we also, there's a lot, we can be really creative. I've had people do presentations. I had a student who was a design student who had plagiarized, and we actually had her design a poster for kind of her peers about plagiarism, and it turned out really neat. I was like, wish I had money to actually print it. So it turned out great. So we try to make the sanction not only help them learn about the violation they committed, but also make it relevant to what they're doing. And we also mentors. We actually will have students go out and have them, the research has shown that students who have mentors do better. And so we'll send them out, get them to talk to somebody, and lots of times they'll choose their own mentor, and sometimes that's a favorite instructor. And when I taught and it's especially freshmen, sometimes they don't make the distinction between a professor and a graduate instructor. So, you know, they would call me Professor Campbell, and they would, you know, want me to be a mentor to them. And you find yourselves in those roles with students, so. And it's really super rewarding and fun. I did tell them I wasn't a professor, though. Gotcha. Okay. So students have rights. Those are their rights. We do due process. We have steps we go through. We don't make decisions willy-nilly. We have a process we go through that affords students the right to be heard and the right to appeal a decision. Okay, so this actually is the bulk, especially for you who are teaching or helping grade or any of those things. This is going to be really important to you. So this just came out. The university is actually doing a lot of focus on academic integrity. We have an academic integrity task force that just went through, did a lot of research, did a lot of talking to students. We're making some changes in kind of how we address academic integrity. We are instituting an honor code. Or an honor statement for students. We've changed kind of our practices. We actually have students who are going to sit on our academic integrity board, which is kind of like the conduct board or the appeal board for academic integrity violations. So if any of you are interested in this, actually we have students on our conduct board and our appeals board as well. So we have 3 boards. If any of you are interested in this, especially if you're like a Crim J or a psych major, that's great. And actually for the academic integrity board, we love to get like math folks who are doing math and science, because we get those kinds of cases. And if you're a humanities person like me, I haven't taken a chemistry or math class since like my sophomore year in college. So I wouldn't be able to make any judgment about stuff. Computer science, it's always really helpful to have a kind of a diverse. So if you're interested, it's really fascinating, I swear, it's really fun. My job is so interesting. Okay. So here's kind of how the process works. So the professor instructor will determine whether it occurred. The professor or instructor determines the consequences. So if you're teaching, when you make your first syllabus, you're going to have a statement in your syllabus that says, if you cheat, here is what's going to happen. And so students, and you'll be able to find that actually, hopefully you'll get some kind of mentoring or help before they throw you into a classroom. But I'll also show you the website where you can find a sample of what's called a syllabus statement. And then you determine the consequences. Do they fail the course? Do you make them redo the paper? And you want to think hard about that, because when you're out there teaching, you're the one who's going to have to enforce that. And you're going to need to be consistent. So think hard about how do you want to enforce this? I can't change anything about academic integrity. I just facilitate a process. The decision is actually made with the folks who do that work. So it's with the instructors, with the Academic Integrity Board, who are students and faculty. Oop. Okay, so what will happen next, and this is kind of a change in the university policy, really recent. It used to be that you had the choice to report. Now, actually, you have to report an academic integrity violation to our office. Two reasons why that's actually a positive thing. One is that we will see repeat offenders. Right? We'll see them, because you may not know that they also did the same thing in their history class that they just did in your poli-sci class, right? I will see that. The second thing is that actually, again, we're educational. That first violation, we're going to get them support and education that they need, so they cannot accidentally plagiarize. And they know how to cite correctly, and they know the difference between a paraphrase and kind of just, changing a word or two, right? And so, there's a list of things that you're going to report to our office. You're going to inform the student that they've committed an academic integrity violation, and you're going to do that in writing. And one of those things is, this is great too, and you have to kind of take it like open. So you're going to also inform the student they have 21 days to appeal your decision, and that goes to the Academic Integrity Board. And I always tell students, because they can appeal my decisions too, I say, I don't care if you want to appeal. I'm not even going to make a grumpy face. That's your right. And so I know that kind of freaks people out, like, oh gosh, I may have to stand in front of a board and justify my decision. It's really okay. It's pretty informal. It's not too bad. But you're going to have to make hard decisions like that. Oh, let's go back. So but most of the time, and this is 75% of the time, after 21 days, if the student doesn't appeal, we will give them the educational sanctions, so those learning sanctions. If they don't appeal and it's their second violation, we will then probably refer them to the conduct board. And as a graduate student, so this is the student side of it, we hold graduate students to a much higher standard. You should know how to not plagiarize. You're in graduate school. So graduate students may end up in front of a conduct board for one violation, just so you know. So be real, if you struggle with anything, especially folks who this is not their first language, I have all the respect in the world for you. That must be so difficult. I can't imagine writing anything academic in a different language. So if you're struggling, just know there's lots of help out there for you. Okay, so the board, I talked about the board. We use a preponderance of evidence standard, which is different than the criminal, and that means more likely than not. The board only looks at two things. Did the violation occur, and are the sanctions in line with your written course policies? And their decision is final, basically. So you can't appeal their decision. They can appeal the sanctions that I would apply afterwards, the educational sanctions. Okay, so students have tons of academic resources, just so you know. This is the tip of an iceberg. It's huge. There's so many places they can get support. So if they're struggling and you see them kind of verging on plagiarism, make sure that they know that there's support out there. This is academic integrity resources. So if you go to this website, this is where you'll get you can find the policy, you can find lots of stuff on how to recognize plagiarism. You'll be using, hopefully you'll be using Blackboard, which has some really cool stuff in it, but one of them is a plagiarism kind of recognizer tool that's really neat. And anyway, so you can go there and that's a resource for you. And there's also stuff on there for students as well. And then this is actually our resource website, which I'm going to click on. Go on. Woohoo, baby. There we go. And I'm really proud of this because I did this. So I have to show everybody. But this is a resource website that you can go to, and it has all sorts of stuff. So it has a lot of those academic supports. And if you click on them, so say, for instance, you need some healthcare services. So you click on it, and it'll bring up a description. And you go there. And so a lot of times students end up getting in trouble because they're struggling in other ways too. So and students will confide in you. Your students will confide in you, and you may be struggling. Because I know I was poor as a graduate student. And sometimes they do things, or the stress gets to them because of that. And if we can make sure that they have the resources and support so that they make healthy and good choices, that's a positive thing. Okay? And that is the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any questions other than how to get lunch? Okay, thank you so much.